Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, the government plows ahead with its case to demolish shantytowns. Why the health minister insists the Bahamas is not in a third COVID-19 wave. And Grand Bahamians shook as a mysterious light streaks across the night sky. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the Shantytown trial continued today with government setting out its case for why the policy to rid the country of shantytowns is sound. Jared Higgs has the details.
The government started making its case in defense of its shantytown demolition policy on Tuesday, with lead attorney Kayla Green-Smith quickly highlighting that the destruction brought by Hurricane Dorian in Abaco shantytowns demonstrates the importance of compliance with building standards. Green-Smith spent much of the day defending the role of building regulations manager Craig Delancey, who issued notices for the removal of the shantytown structures back in 2018. The applicants say Delancey was acting outside his power, but in his affidavit, Delancey points to several incidents over the past 11 years where recommendations were made to him concerning overcrowded communities where he says he acted impartially. For example, Delancey says he has ordered buildings to be taken down off Joe Farrington Road, Seabreeze Lane, and Gamble Heights between 2010 and 2015. Green-Smith added that there are other instances where Delancey and his team ordered illegal structures outside of shantytowns to be torn down. She says the building control officer and his team were carrying out their duties according to the Building Regulations Act and without discrimination. Green-Smith also touched on what government did to acknowledge its humanitarian obligations. She says international organizations were contacted and consulted. She also argued that plans were put in place to assist people with finding alternative housing, and they made special efforts to help groups such as the sick, elderly, and children. She says this particular work from the Shantytown Action Task Force clearly shows that attention was given to the individual needs of Shantytown residents. Government's lawyers also produced a report that revealed that some water in shantytowns is contaminated by chloroform and that human feces were observed in common walking areas. She says that report also indicated a strong rodent infestation. With respect to utilities such as water and sewerage, Green-Smith argued that there was never a decision to disconnect. However, she pointed out that the mandate of water and sewerage and BPL is to ensure the safe supply of water and electricity. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
9 men and 2 women arrested during a raid on the farm shantytown in Abaco were arraigned in the magistrate's court on Monday. 7 defendants pled guilty to illegal landing and will pay a $300 fine or serve 12 months in prison. An 8th defendant pled not guilty to the charge and was remanded until trial. 3 others pled guilty to overstaying and were fined $800, $1,300, and $1,200 respectively, or will spend over a year in prison. Upon payment of fines or serving their sentences, they were ordered to be deported. Last Thursday, several people were arrested during a raid that resulted in suspected stolen goods being seized and gas tanks and generators being disconnected. Well, despite a worrying increase in COVID-19 cases over the weekend, the health minister is shooting down speculation that the Minnis administration will tighten COVID-19 restrictions. Jasmine Brown reports.
I don't foresee any more measures in regards to the health protocols than what we have in place.
Well's comments come 3 days after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis told reporters that despite a recent rise in COVID-19 cases on New Providence, he has no plans at the moment to increase restrictions. On Sunday, 22 COVID cases were reported by health officials, while on Monday, 21 cases were reported. But on Saturday, 53 cases were reported in the country. The number was a significant increase compared to daily numbers observed in recent months, as some fear the Bahamas may be headed for a third wave. But Wells suggested the fluctuation in cases does not point to that.
We see a spike one day with about 40 cases, then we see it down in the teens, then we see it in the 20s, then we see it in the teens. And that might be due to a particular event, because this virus has a 14-day incubation cycle. So if you have a bunch of persons who get together in a particular locale and they're commiserating together, and someone is positive and they would have spread it to these other individuals, you could expect that everyone exposed over those 14 days, those 10 days would end up showing up positive.
Wells insisted the vaccination of residents has become one of the Minnis administration's top alternatives to a lockdown.
While we are seeing the increases in cases, the ministry has also sought to increase the amount of opportunities for vaccination. And we have the two circumstances running concurrently.
The National COVID-19 Vaccine Consultative Committee said that more than 15,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine have been administered on New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Eleuthera. When asked if he thought that number was low, Wells said this.
It's not a low number because we have, if you go down to Loyola Hall or Church of God or any of those other places, the lines are wrapped, snaking for people who are wanting to take the vaccine.
Now, as it relates to expanding the vaccination program, the health minister says Abaco is set to receive its first set of doses this Thursday. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
A 23-year-old man is in custody, assisting police with their investigation into a murder that occurred last evening. Police received information that two men were involved in an argument at Key West Street shortly after 5 p.m. Monday. Reports are that argument escalated and one of the men was stabbed several times. The victim was transported to hospital via private vehicle where he later died. Well, a rare celestial sighting last night had some Bahamians on Grand Bahama shaking, literally. The flash of light could be seen over parts of the island shortly after residents heard a loud boom. Jillian Gray reports.
It was that flash of light and the subsequent thunderous boom that sent shockwaves through West Grand Bahama.
I was at the computer doing some work and there was this big boom and the house shook, and I went to go look in the closet to see if something fell, and right then my daughter said, "Mommy, my classmates messaging me, something happened outside." I was like, well, Lorraine ain't going outside.
Following similar sightings in nearby Florida, a NASA official explained what some residents saw was a fireball caused by a fragment of an asteroid. It reportedly weighed about 900 pounds and hit Earth's atmosphere at 38,000 miles an hour before burning up into nothing. Reserve Inspector James Martin says while he's used to house tremors from the rock blasting of a local company, they knew this one was different.
Felt the vibration in my house. I thought it was something exploded nearby. I had to get up, go outside, check around. My wife was still up, but she wouldn't let me go back to bed until she was a little satisfied. But she kept thinking, well, something had to explode.
After their control room was inundated with calls, police officers made extra rounds on patrol.
They had vehicles all over, sending out all over Freeport to make checks, and also vehicles from here went out and made checks.
Several residents took to social media to share their experience, some jesting at the possibility of aliens, others Armageddon. Chief Counselor of West Grand Bahama, Kevin Morris, says he's just happy no one was hurt.
It was a strange occurrence, and now I'm just, every day you could expect anything to happen, and I'm just glad that everyone was safe.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Beautiful conditions in the capital today. Greg Thompson is in the weather studio with the latest.
Thanks, Christina. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather. Beautiful conditions on the outside, just a few clouds out in the sky. Temperatures in the mid-70s once again. Your winds are out of the northeast, a light 6 knots, and your feels like temperature in the mid-70s. Satellite view around the area. Of course, that high-pressure system is building across the northwest Bahamas with mostly clear skies across that area. Weak frontal boundary across the central Bahamas will continue to side towards the south. A couple of spotty showers associated with that, but that should exit the area later on tonight and into tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, the PM facing mounting calls to ring the bell, plus the search for 4 missing Guyanese men. The details after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Four Guyanese men are feared dead after a visit to Bimini and a fatal attempt at crossing over into the United States. Jared Higgs has the story.
Kevin Sukraj, Krishna Sukraj, Ryan Boudou, and Anil Duanarian, all from Guyana, traveled to Bimini in early February and haven't been heard from since February 10th.
He just normally go there a lot. He go there more than one time. He just go on vacation.
The news first broke in the Guyana Times, with Sukraj's sister, Geeta Sukraj, telling the newspaper that the men went missing after being in Bimini and following a run-in with law enforcement. Our news confirmed that encounter with law enforcement with the owner of the Three Daughters motel where the men were staying. Steve Roll says the men booked the rooms in early February and paid on a daily basis. After the raid, they were let go.
I know they said it was trying to get into New York.
On February 10th, the last day the men were heard from, the United States Coast Guard rescued a Jamaican man stranded on a capsized boat at sea. During that rescue, Coast Guard officials learned that there were 6 others on the boat that originated from Bimini on its way to the Florida coast. Those men were never found. Sukraj's family have been in contact with those officials.
They believe that's how they was on the boat and they all died.
Despite the suspicion of other family members that their loved one is gone, Geeta Sukraj believes her brother is still alive.
I don't believe that because my brother never told us nothing like that. When my brother leave here, he didn't tell us nothing and we wouldn't hide it to tell anybody because from the starting we would tell the truth because this gotta go to news. We don't know anything about that. And if my brother going to America, he would tell us.
Now, with many questions and grave answers, Sukraj's sister says their family wants to speak to the Jamaican man who was rescued by Coast Guard officials. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, PLP leader Philip Davis is calling on the Prime Minister to set a date for the next general election as public criticism mounts over political gatherings during the pandemic. Giorgio Bain reports.
With all signs pointing to an early election, PLP leader Philip Davis says his party will not sit aside and watch as the FNM continues to campaign. Davis called on the Prime Minister to ring the bell, adding that if Dr. Hubert Minnis continues to so visibly ramp up his own campaign activity without announcing an election date, campaign activities across the country will continue to intensify.
The Prime Minister is campaigning, and he's signaling that the election is going to be early. We cannot, as an opposition, just sit back and allow him to do what he's doing, and we don't attempt to get our message and meet our people and try to persuade the Bahamian people that we are the ones and that we cannot afford another 5 years of this government.
Following the suggestion by Chief Medical Officer Dr. Pearl Macmillan that political gatherings should not be happening at this time, Davis ordered a review of the PLP's campaign practices.
I'm concerned about the activities of Bahamians, particularly during the electioneering time. Everyone is hyped up. Everyone wants to. Campaigning is about meeting and touching and greeting, and very often protocols are thrown out of the window. We have published our protocols for our workers and our canvassers and our candidates. They are following it, and we continue to do so. But it's very difficult to control those who might just come and just show up.
According to Davis, there is a simple way to fix the issue. If the Prime Minister intends to set the election for 2022, then he should pick a date and announce it, as that would allow political parties to suspend major campaign activities until the current surge of COVID-19 cases has abated. Further, he says setting a fixed election date would enable Minnis to keep at least one of his many campaign promises.
Fix the date for the election so that we'll know how to conduct ourselves.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Well, Bahamians studying in Barbados expressing concern over volcanic ash falling over the island following the eruption of a volcano on St. Vincent. Berthany McDermott has that.
A volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that had been dormant for decades erupted on Friday, spewing clouds of ash for more than 118 miles into Barbados. Falling like snow, the ash covered cars, buildings, and trees. Adriana Richardson, a Bahamian cultural studies student, says her car was covered in ash. She also had some health concerns.
A friend of mine, she had an asthma attack, and we had to rush her to the hospital. For me, my head started hurting, my throat was hurting, like I was having trouble breathing.
Fortunately, Richardson didn't have to be hospitalized. Tanaj Moxie, a second-year law student at the University of the West Indies, explains the first sign of the volcanic activity was the aroma that filled the air.
It was this sulfuric kind of scent, as if something was burning. Shortly after that, the ash started to fall.
And so the beach itself looks like it's brown. They have white sandy beaches, and now there's just ash covering the beach.
While they weren't fearful at first, Moxie and psychology student Denisha Ferguson said they became a bit concerned as conditions worsened.
If it rains, what basically happens is that when ash and water mix, a concrete-like substance forms and it hardens. So that was a concern.
I was also kind of excited because, you would never think that a volcanic would erupt in your time. So it was a bit of excitement, a little bit of concern.
Eventually, the country's airport was closed. Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley urged residents to clear up the ash from around their homes and properties. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
There's more news coming up, but first, your RF Market Watch.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Still to come, Bacchus rolls schools Kyle Joaquin on the basketball court, plus the latest on Jazz Chisholm. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. From the basketball court to frontline politics, a political newcomer is looking to change the game. Kyle Joaquin shoots hoops with PLP candidate for South Beach, Bacchus Roll, in tonight's edition of Meet the Candidate.
People talk to me about my political future and if this happens, will I still coach? Of course. Of course. That is how I stay grounded with the young men in this country.
Meet Bacchus Roll. A father, husband, and entrepreneur, he's gone from working with some of the country's leading financial institutions to running his own. But what many may know Roll for is his passion and love for basketball. Currently, he serves as the head coach for the University of the Bahamas' men's basketball team. And it's there that he says he's able to impact lives.
I see them as an extension of my family. I have 2 sons with my wife. One is 18 and one is 8. But I have about 50 guys that I speak to almost on a weekly basis because basketball is done, but now the life coaching continues. And it is that part of my life that I enjoy most.
If you've ever seen Roll in action coaching on the court, you could tell there's some heart behind it.
Right there! Oh my God, before you even come up!
And now he's entering a new arena, frontline politics, running as the PLP's candidate in South Beach.
It's very difficult to affect change from the outside looking in. So in order to do that, I knew that I would have to get inside, in the machine, to see if we can create change for this greater Bahamas that we all want to live in.
But before we wrapped up today, I couldn't interview a basketball coach without trying to learn something myself. So Roll took me to the free throw line.
When you come up to a 90-degree angle, the important thing about shooting is just not, you don't pull the ball back to shoot it. It's from here, from a 90-degree angle, you just go straight up.
Oh, okay.
You go straight up and then wrist.
And then, my moment. With this edition of Meet the Candidate for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Next time, Kyle. Next time. Well, tonight in sports, the latest on Jazz Chisholm and DeAndre Ayton, plus an analysis of our Kyle Joaquin's free throw skills. Marcellus Hall has the rundown.
All right, thanks, Christina. Welcome to our Sports on a Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Jazz Chisholm has been in the news a lot lately. That's because he is the only current Bahamian in the major leagues, playing for the Florida Marlins. Last night, they took on the Atlanta Braves. Let's take a look. Chisholm once again had his customary spot on second base, batting 6th in the order. This one, they would need extra innings to decide a winner, as it was 3-3 at the end of 9. Marlins would score 2 runs, however, in the top of the 10th, and that would be more than enough. Braves unable to score in the bottom of the frame. Marlins would win 5-3. As for Jazz, he would go 1 for 3 at the plate with a walk. Marlins play the Braves again today in game 2 of a 4-game set. On to some hoops, as DeAndre Ayton and the Suns hosting the Houston Rockets. Suns red hot from distance as they hit a record-tying 18 3-pointers in the first half on their way to a 126-120 victory. Ayton would play 29 minutes in the game. He finished with 18 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. Phoenix now 38-15 on the season. They play again this evening when they take on the Miami Heat. And speaking of basketball, our very own Kyle Joaquin, apparently considering declaring for the upcoming NBA draft in June. Kyle, who calls himself the Bahamian Steph Curry, working on his jump shot under the watchful eye of UB coach Backus Roll. Let's take a look. So there you have it. Kyle definitely needs to work on the free throw range before you get to the three-point range. That's all I can say. That's what you call a basketball-involved homicide, because he murdered that basketball. I'll tell you that right there. Anyway, that's your check on sports. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Marcellus. It didn't get any better the second time around. Still to come, an Eleuthera MP laments the high cost of COVID tests. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Mostly sunny skies ahead. Greg is back in the weather studio with the outlook.
Thanks again, Christina, and a happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Just another lovely day around the islands as a high-pressure system across the southeast United States builds across our area. Weak frontal boundary extending out of the Atlantic across the central and southeastern islands will continue to sag towards the south and weaken further with just a few isolated showers. We do expect another weak boundary to move into the area by Wednesday, Thursday, but no significant weather expected. Boating conditions for all areas tonight through tomorrow. Northeast to east winds 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. High tide will be at 9:50 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe Tuesday night, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, the cost of COVID-19 RT-PCR tests on Eleuthera is too high, according to North Eleuthera MP Ricky Mackey, who's calling on the private sector and the government to do more to alleviate the burden placed on residents. Bethany McDermott has that.
Egregious and outrageous is how North Eleuthera Member of Parliament Ricky Mackey described the high cost of COVID-19 RT-PCR tests in his constituency. He hit out at the vast difference in price for tests on New Providence, which on average is around $120, while Eleutherans pay up to $300.
It should never be to that. I believe that the cost of these tests are too expensive.
His comments come weeks after the competent authority mandated that an RT-PCR test is needed for anyone traveling from Harbour Island or mainland Eleuthera to any other island. Residents have railed against the new policy. Mackey, who also serves as Nassau Flight Services Board Chairman, said something needs to be done.
I think a conversation should be held with these private operators or even the labs.
Now, Mackey said he sought to address the issue with officials from the Ministry of Health, but he said he wasn't pleased with the response.
I didn't get the type of response that I wanted. And that's not pointing fingers at them. I understand what they're faced with.
Our News also reached out to 2 facilities on Eleuthera, which said there are a number of logistics that go into getting the tests. However, an official from Bahamas Wellness said the cost of their tests was reduced to $175 following the change in the emergency order. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.